Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I promise you it's going to be a very interesting session because we have both doctors and patients providing their views on teleconsultation. My name is Vinita Navadgi. I'm one of the founders of Dr. Prax, and we wanted to have this session today to give you a very candid view from doctors and patients on how teleconsultation has helped them. They're also going to provide very interesting aspects on when teleconsultation may not be actually the ideal mode of communication or consultation between doctors and patients. These are real life experiences, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy the session today. We have a very vibrant team of panelists that have joined us today. I'll start with introducing the doctors on board. We have Dr. Navrange. Dr. Jayant Navrange is a renowned pediatrician practicing since 1981. He is the chairman of the medico-legal cell of the Indian Medical Association, Pune. And with his vast experience with medicine and medico-legal aspects, he has been instrumental in driving the guidelines for the use of telemedicine technology in Maharashtra and across India. Next, we have Dr. Salim Pathan. Dr. Salim Pathan is an experienced ophthalmologist with one of the finest eye surgeons in Pune. He has over 25 years of experience, and we are very happy to have an ophthalmologist using our platform very actively. Next is Dr. Nachiket. Dr. Nachiket Kulkarni is a leading rheumatology specialist. He is serving patients not just in Maharashtra, but all across India. He again is not just a avid medical practitioner. He's also a technologist and has provided very interesting and useful guidelines on the use of telemedicine technology. Next, we have Dr. Ashwini Margae. Dr. Ashwini Margae is a leading obstetrician, gynecologist, and infertility specialist with over 20 years of experience. She has been helping patients, not just in India, but abroad, using her vast experience and across teleconsultation mediums. We have Dr. Dilip Walke, who is the practicing obstetrician and gynecologist with over 31 years of experience. He has been associated with many prestigious organizations like Foxy and POGS in leadership positions. He has a keen interest in medico-legal issues and has contributed to various papers, books, and articles on the topic. He will be leading our panel discussion today with the team of doctors and patients. I would also like to introduce our patients today who have been kind enough to join us for our and share their experiences today. We have Ms. Shahida Belgaonkar. Ms. Shahida Belgaonkar has been working as a customer support executive for many years, and now she is self-employed as a Vastu consultant and astro counselor. She would like to share her experiences on telemedicine and how it has helped her in managing her health. We also have Ritesh Jaiswal, who is an avid technologist. He has 25 years of expertise in scaling enterprise businesses, and he will share his experiences in the healthcare space, as well as his experience in dealing with teleconsultation as a platform while taking care of his health again. So without further ado, I would like to get started. I would like to hand it over to Dr. Dilip Walke to lead the panel discussion. So
thank you very much, Vinita, for a kind introduction of all of us. First of all, a warm welcome on behalf of DR Prax. Wishing you all doctors and non-doctor friends a very safe and healthy life during this pandemic era. First of all, let's start with a disclaimer to tell everybody who's attending this webinar that our panelists do not have any business interests in that. Incidentally, some of them are the clients of DR Prax, but they do not have any business interests. I am on the advisory board of the sponsor, that is DR Prax. And the panel discussion basically aims at understanding the pros and cons of telemedicine, which is an ideal platform for private platform provider for telemedicine, and whether telemedicine is there only just for this pandemic or it's going to work even beyond the pandemic. So these are the questions that we will try to understand, as Vinita told us during her introductory remark. And as she already told us that these are our esteemed panelists, she told us about Dr. Navrange, who's a lawyer. And to me, Dr. Navrange is kind of a teacher. I mean, whatever medico-legal aspects that I learned is all just sitting as a delegate there and making notes of whatever he said. And that's how I started developing my interest in medico-legal aspect. So for me, Dr. Navrange sir is like a teacher. Dr. Nachiket Kulkarni, the rheumatologist, Salim Patan, the ophthalmologist, Ashwini, of course, I know her very well because she's a gynecologist. She works in the area where I practice, that is how. And I was really happy to know today that Shahida is an astrologer. I mean, she consults in that. So maybe Shahida today, at the end of everything, she will tell us whether DR Prax is going to work, and I'll send her across my date of birth, and let's see what's stored in what's in store for me in life later on. And Ritesh, of course, is a good friend, and we have been interacting with Ritesh for more than a year now. When he met me, and that idea of starting a platform like that clicked with my interaction with Ritesh. So with this interaction, with this small introduction and knowing about the panelists, let's get started. And I want a promise from the panelists. जो कहेंगे सच कहेंगे, सच के सिवा कुछ नहीं कहेंगे. I mean, just because it's a webinar and so many people are watching us, let's not talk only good things about the platform, because the platform has been sponsored by DR Prax. All bouquets, brickbats, whatever you feel like, let's have an open discussion so everybody gets an idea of what we are trying to explain. So let me get started with Shahida first. Shahida, are you there?
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
there.
So,
Can you hear me, sir? Good
yeah,
evening.
good
Can you
evening.
hear me? Yeah.
So I'm told you are from Ichadkalanji. And
No,
now,
no, no, no,
where
no,
are
no,
you
no.
from?
I'm from Mumbai, but at the moment I'm in Kolhapur.
Okay, fine. So you're basically not in Pune. So
No.
you're from a place which is away from Pune. And let's
Yeah,
presume that you have some chronic rheumatological problem,
yeah.
and you had done an in-person consultation a few days back with your doctor. And today you want an advice or medicine for some minor problems of yours, or you wanted to show your reports to the doctor, or you wanted to communicate for minor adjustments of some dose of the medicine, and you made a call to the doctor or you send him a WhatsApp, and this is what is happening between you and the doctor. The doctor says, sorry, I do not talk to patients on phone. And then you say, but sir, it's a minor complaint. Should I text you my complaint? The doctor says, no, I don't respond to text. So you tell him, at least have a look at my reports on the WhatsApp and tell me if the reports are okay. And the doctor says, no, WhatsApp is for my personal use. I do not entertain communication with the patients on WhatsApp. Then again, you plead and you say, but I am your old patient. Please help me. I cannot come to the clinic just now. I am not staying in Pune. But the doctor gives you a typical Puneri answer, because your doctor is from Pune and you are from outside Pune. He said, don't disturb me. Go to any other doctor, choose any nearby clinic. आमची कुठेही शाखा नाही आहे, so don't talk to me. So my question to you is, will you prefer to continue treatment with such a doctor? So which means I want to get the patient's perspective on telemedicine, because many a times patients have this feeling कि doctor ना नुसतं भेटलं तरी बरं वाटतं. So now from this to a change for doing a teleconsultation where the doctor is not seen, I mean in person you're not meeting the doctor. So what are your perspective on telemedicine? That's what I wanted to know.
Sir, actually, frankly speaking, my requirement will be that I need some help from the doctor. I want the medicine because I'm going through some critical issue, and I want the doctor to just help me. In that crucial moment, what I will do, I will see whichever means I'm getting, And in this pandemic issue, I happened to get in touch with Dr. Nachiket Kulkarni. It was my first visit, and the second visit there was a lockdown, and I was not able to meet him. So he happened to tell me about this Dr. Prax, and then he sent me link. Somehow I was able to manage and get in touch with him, and then he happened to give me the treatment what I wanted. So my problem was solved. And that time, actually, I'm in Kolhapur right now, and I have a lot of issues of my Vodafone network. But then somehow we managed, and he was also very helpful to me, and he gave me all the answers what I had asked him, and the treatment and the medicines which he had prescribed me. I was not able to get due to this lockdown thing. but then somehow he happened to give me the answers, and then he gave me the alternative medicine, substitute medicine. I was able to get that. So I was very happy that my problem was solved. And this Dr. Prax was very, very helpful to me
Yeah.
that time. Okay. But if you ask me, definitely I would like to continue. Why? Because for me, I being a patient, I was not really in a position to go to the hospital and commute and then I'm staying very far, like, I'm staying near the airport. So, so much time will be wasted in my traveling. And also this was very, very handy for me.
Yeah,
So
you're
if you
lucky,
ask me,
Shaida, because you have a doctor who, though he is from Pune, he's not Puneri. So naturally,
yeah,
everybody would want to continue with Nachiket.
yeah,
So
yeah. And see, and frankly speaking, I met him only once in
yeah,
this hospital over here in Kolhapur.
yeah,
So when I contacted him, it was a big question mark for me whether this doctor will respond me or no. But
yeah.
I will say, thank to Almighty, the doctor was very
Which means
kind.
not all Pune doctors are Puneri. So and telemedicine, they do respond on telemedicine, right?
No, I had a good experience with him,
Great, great.
and I'm really thankful to this Dr. Prax, I can say.
So now I go to Ritesh. So I got your perspective, Shaida. I go to Ritesh
Huh.
now. Ritesh, now supposing there is a senior relative or a chronic patient who's on steroid or immunosuppressants, and the doctors have already told you that as much as possible prevent any infection, and you want a prescription just for a refill of his routine drugs. Will you prefer to visit the clinic or get the prescription online? So this is what I wanted to know from Ritesh also. I'm trying to understand the various problems that the patients may be having. So maybe Ritesh, your perspective on it.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Very, very important question, especially in the COVID world, wherein we are all trying to avoid going out and meeting anybody. In such a situation, if I have a situation as described by you, like immunosuppressants and somebody is on steroids, definitely I would like some kind of a platform by which I'll be able to communicate with my doctor. I mean, I have a very simple philosophy about it, and maybe I think it's changing around me. But I personally believe that whether you are meeting, for a chronic disease or for any kind of a new disease, it is very important that you have a relationship with the doctor, and it's very important that the doctor whom you are speaking with has your complete history when they are talking to you. So, from the COVID perspective and from the perspective of not exposing myself and not exposing myself from the infection perspective, I would definitely like a channel like teleconsultation platform for me to communicate.
Yeah, Ritesh, you talked about the COVID perspective. Now, my
Yes.
question is to you that someday this COVID pandemic is going to get over. Someday, I
Yeah.
mean, maybe we feel that the vaccine should come, and maybe by the end of this year everything will be okay. Maybe it takes one more year, but
Right.
still, despite the fact that the pandemic is going to get over, this fear of getting infected by any virus is going to
Yeah.
continue. And now
Yes.
this mindset of as much as possible not going to the hospital, not going to the clinics, not visiting an area where there is a likelihood of getting a virus is going to continue. So will you as a patient prefer that this telemedicine continues even beyond the pandemic, or do you feel that it should be restricted only to the pandemic?
So I'll get started, and maybe Shahida ma'am can add. I personally feel that in all the cases, you definitely will not need teleconsultation. It will, of course, depend on the doctor's comfort. That if suppose you can communicate with the doctor and describe your symptoms over the the email, over chat or images or audio, video, some of these channels, then definitely this is a good channel for you to communicate with. I also think that there are few scenarios wherein I think this teleconsultation would work very well. In my view, for example, if suppose you have a chronic disease and let's say multidisciplinary issues, I think in many cases, what we have is a scenario wherein there is no one disease. I mean, let's say you have a kidney element, typically you will also have a BP element. And you want to go to the kidney specialist as well as the BP specialist. So multidisciplinary support for chronic disease management, you don't even necessarily have to go to the doctor every time. You can do some of these things. Some after the initial visit, you can do it online. Some diseases such as sexual health, mental health, some of these things when people are uncomfortable going to the clinic can be very easily tackled using teleconsultation, in my view. I also feel that once you're out of the hospital, let's say you are in the ICU, you're coming out of the ICU or hospital, for normal issues, like once you come back to home, there are some side effects of the medicines when you're taking this medicine. You don't want to go to the hospital again. You can just communicate with your doctor and get the advice. So, and basically in many cases like diabetes and BP, I definitely know that, once in a while you have to do reports and follow up. In such cases also, teleconsultation in my view is very, very essential. But of course, for emergencies and some of these scenarios, you may want to just consult with the doctor and go and see the doctor in person, is my point of view, sir.
But Shahida, you want to add something on this? Would you also believe that teleconsultation is not just for the pandemic, but it's going to stay for a long time now?
Yeah, it will be, because now the situation is such that most of the time, like, we are not able to reach to the hospital. Sometimes there are strikes, sometimes the taxis are not available, rickshaws are not available. In such cases, for us, this will be very, very handy. Like, yeah, if there is an emergency, I need to show some body part, I mean, some needs to be checked by doctor in person, then I will have to go to the hospital. Then I have no option. But otherwise, definitely, I would prefer this, because I'm saving my time as well as I'm saving my money also. Commuting is also a very big problem. For me, I'm spending $400 going to the hospital. But this is very easy for me. I'm saving money, And second thing, I'm at relax, I'm at home and I'm in touch with doctor, not getting ready, deck up and running, with all those things. So for me, this will be useful even after pandemic also.
Wonderful. So in general, you all feel that telemedicine is here to stay. So I can just sum up of as to what both of you are saying is, patients do prefer a teleconsultation in some certain situations that Ritesh told us, and they'll prefer this teleconsultation to stay even beyond this pandemic for whatever the advantages that Shahida told us just now. I would now want to come to Nachiket. Were you actually obliging your patients on phone or WhatsApp even before this pandemic? And was it a standard practice amongst the doctors? We are talking about teleconsultation suddenly now when the pandemic has started. But before that, were you obliging, or were you the typical Puneri doctor before the pandemic?
In a corporate setup, if you talk from that perspective, you have to set a practice. The USP of your practice has to be set on ease of availability for the patient. So it's impossible for you to stay in an alienated place and not be in touch with your patients. When the patients have any need, they will try every means possible to get in touch with you, which is absolutely fine and correct. Now, the government had struck down legality that where these forums of communications were not legal. But if you bring ethics in place, you have to do whatever you can to help the patient in whatever problem he had to face. So in that personal requirement, even with a heartburn and a sense of fear, an absolute fear, we used to connect through WhatsApp or phone to our patients. And it was a part of standard practice, though we can say it with a crossed finger.
So we took that risk for all our patients. So doctors sometimes take some extra risk into getting connected with patients, but sometimes patients don't realize that. So I thought we'll take advantage of this platform and even tell the patients and how that doctors took risk in getting connected with you. And I just want to defend those doctors who in the pre-pandemic area refused to tell anything on the telephone. So though, yes, it has been a standard practice all throughout. So I want to come to Ashwini. Wherever in the past you responded to your patient on a phone or a WhatsApp, did you get monetized for it? Did you find it embarrassing to ask for the fee after an online consultation? I wanted to ask you that.
Actually, every time, I think with all of us, our day starts with the WhatsApp and our day starts with the mobile. So the morning you get up, you always see the patients sending you the reports of follicular studies. Somebody is saying, I'm having some lower abdominal discomfort, not actually the pain. So being always it was always my priority that just be available for your patient. So I was always available on WhatsApp, whatever time of the day, night it is. And my mobile number is always with all of my patients. So I never had a daring to monetize my patient for that. And I never asked for the money. Though sometimes I did feel that, okay, I'm spending around 10 minutes with this patient, just talking on the phone and explaining them what is the reason and what is the possibilities and what are the investigations to be done. And still I'm not been paid for that. So it was always an embarrassing feature to ask for the fees
And
after
I'm
the
sure,
online consultation.
Ashwini, every doctor sitting here will echo your thoughts that yes, we always thought that we should be monetized for the service that
Monetized.
we've given, and we found it embarrassing to ask for the fee. So this was
True.
definitely, everybody sitting here will say that. And now I
Yeah.
want to come to Ritesh and Saida. I mean, do you feel it is unethical on the part of the doctors to charge fee for the service that they have given for the consultation? And I also want to tell you what should be the ask you what should be the logical fee. If you feel that yes, they can charge, then what should be the logical fee which is reasonable and justifiable? Do you feel that doctors should not charge anything? Because पहले तो आके मिलके गई हूँ, मैंने तो अपना ये in person consultation charge तो दे दिया है. So they should not charge, or they should charge less than the routine in-person visit, or they should charge more than the routine in-person visit charges, or it should be variable from case to case. I just want to have a patient's perspective on this, and then I'll come back to the doctors. So anybody can come. Ritesh or Shahida, anybody can come.
Okay, Mr. Ritesh, you can go ahead first.
Yes.
All the
sure.
embarrassing questions Shahida is giving to Ritesh. So.
No, not that.
No. So I guess, sir, I'll get started, Shahida, ma'am. No problems at all.
Okay.
Essentially, when you look at it from the patient's perspective, I think there is a very clear realization that you're using somebody's services. I think the doctor is also professional. His only way of earning is by providing suggestions and consultation to the doctor. So I definitely feel it's important that they get charged for what effort they're putting in. I don't think they should feel embarrassed at all, and I think there should be a mechanism by which a fair compensation is treated out to the doctors as they feel appropriate. I mean, I'm no judge to say that whether they should charge less or more. It will be dependent on the intensity of the issue, the amount of time that they spend, the amount of thought process that they had to do. So complete choice is doctors, but I think they should definitely get paid, because otherwise it's very embarrassing for patients like us that, doctor I'm calling out, he's giving me suggestions, and when I go next time, there will be some amount of resentment. We are all humans. So we know that, if suppose somebody is giving something and I'm not rewarding something, some amount of resentment will remain and it will come out of something. So it's best that, you compensate for the services that they're providing for.
Yeah, Shahida?
Yeah, so no, it's not unethical. I feel we should be charged, since doctor is giving us the treatment, he's giving us the right information. So I feel, and second thing, as a patient, I feel that once I have paid the fees, I'm assured, yes, I'm going to get all the treatment, to the fullest extent. That is, some kind of assurance is there. And if I don't pay and just keep on asking or taking information and advices and all, then in the end I will feel guilty also. And then somewhere, some patient, they may stop, going to the doctor, because they know they have taken advantage. So I feel, no, we should be charged, but depends on the case to case. Like first visit we are charged, but then say after whatever your norms, your rules, regulation, whatever, like, suppose certain period, if they are going to charge me, then it should be, I feel, little discount should be there for us, because it's not in person, no? So I feel some difference has to be there. So some discount should be there. That's all. Yeah. Of course, but not for the first visit, first consultation. That you can take full. Correct, but the next one, I feel some discount, Yeah,
so you can have your perspective, Shahida, but maybe a minute back also you told me that you're already saving 400 rupees for not spending on the transport.
I knew you were going to ask me.
And then getting decked up and getting some new dresses. So you're already spending a lot of money before even going to the doctor, because you're getting connected on teleconsultation. So maybe I can add even not 400 but 200 rupees more for consulting with you on.
No.
Just joking, but then the moral of the story is yes. I mean, there is no harm in charging. So I would like to get Dr. Salim Pathan's perspective on charging here. I mean, many a time doctors also do not understand whether for this consultation, for a simple chat, should I charge or not charge? And there may be situations wherein Dr. Salim, you may feel, I mean, it's not ethical to charge. So sometimes do you do this consultation free of charge? Nil consultation totally?
Previously, as Dr. Ashwini has rightly said, we used to do a consultation on WhatsApp, because that was easy. access to most of our patients. But after some time, when we were not doing our OPDs full-fledged, so most of the patients were contacting us on our WhatsApp platform, and they were asking us various their ailment difficulties. But initially we were not charging, but after some time, some patients started asking our professional fees, and then I really thought of that I should utilize this platform in a better way, so that I can properly consult my patients as well as I can monetize from it.
Yeah, but as there are situations where, like, supposing somebody has seen me just in the morning, and in the evening she has some questions about the dosage of drugs, and she contacts me and she asks me, "Ki, sir, हे दिवसातून दोनदा घ्यायचं का तीनदा द्यायचं?" Things like that. Then I know that I've already charged her in the morning. Then ethically, I may decide not to even charge. So there should be some mechanism on the platform where the doctors also should have the right of not charging anything. You cannot be having a default
Yeah.
charging of so many rupees whenever somebody takes a consultation on
Yeah.
telemedicine. So this is what I wanted to drive home to the patients who have joined us for the webinar here, that doctors are very considerate. Not that doctors will charge every time the same amount as they would charge for a in-person consultation, but doctors may take a decision here, I don't deserve to charge anything, and may charge less or may charge even zero. So that was the point that I thought that we wanted to drive at. So patients don't mind being charged for the service that they have received. What they only expect is good service and a reasonable charging pattern. And doctors generally are reasonable. I don't think there are doctors who charge more just because they are available on the telemedicine platform. Again, I want to come back to Nachiket. See, whenever we were taught in the medical colleges, we always were taught that whatever may be the interaction between the patient and the doctors, it involves, number one, history taking, number two, in physical examination, then if needed, investigation, and then if needed, a surgical management or a medical management. So this was what we were taught in our medical colleges. Now, do you feel it is unethical to bypass this examination? I mean, I just want to have an opinion from a medical perspective. In our medical colleges, whatever we have been taught, is it ethical to bypass this examination and give consultation to the patient on telemedicine platform?
Medical college teaching is a part of teaching where you want a medical student learn how he's going to evaluate a complaint and come to a probable diagnosis. A clinical practice is a different ball game where clinical evaluation has
Perspective, so
I
that
understand.
everybody attending will have
I'll come to the point. Clinical examination and treatment have to go hand by hand.
Yeah.
There's no concept that first you make a diagnosis after a series of tests and then you are going to start medications. So in the first very visit, after the first very complaint, there has to be a treatment plan that would probably change as the investigations, as the treatment or further evaluations is at our disposal. Physical examination is an inherent part, and probably in some cases, in emergency cases, and in some very overt or dilemmatous cases, an inevitable part of making a diagnosis. But in most of the features, as taught in medical colleges, 95% of times, your clinical examination is only an adjuvant to a diagnosis that you have made on a good clinical history taking. So it's that only 5% in a more definite history taking, and it's probably about 30% where there is a dilemma which is existent. And it's only rarely that if a dilemma is not handled by history taking, would physical examination be the only way where it would be sorted out. It would invariably requiring an investigation or an imaging to make a diagnosis. We can't wait for a treatment. We can't wait for them either. So in that context, physical examination would probably be absolutely required in about 5 to 10% of cases to make a diagnosis and come to a treatment.
So, so the message here is, several times during our follow-up, a physical examination may not be needed. However, while we make this statement, also, I would want Dr. Navarange sir to now chip in. should doctors get carried away by teleconsultation? Some doctors may. I mean, Nachiket is very balanced in his view about teleconsultation, and he is not getting carried away by that. Looking at the answer he gave us, but some of the doctors may just get carried away with teleconsultation. Are there situations when you, as a medical legal experts, feel that doctors should use their judgment and insist on an in-person consultation? So, since we are talking about teleconsultation, we should not be just talking about the good things of the teleconsultation, but there are situations where teleconsultation may not be an ideal platform to interact. So I would want Dr. Navrange sir's opinion on this.
Thank you, Dilip. Right in the beginning, good evening to everyone.
Yeah.
And I wish to point out that Puneri people have left their pagdi, so they have changed also completely with the due course of time.
Yeah, yeah.
So every time Puneri, the old Puneri, what we are used to see after about 50, 70 years before.
Correct.
So that's number one. This answer, I'm a bit skeptical that only 5 to 10% is contributed by the physical exam. Probably his branch, yes, I would say yes. But take an example of your own branch, that is obstetric gynecology. You need to examine the patient internally as well as from all angles to come to a pointed diagnosis. So every time it is not possible just by a clinical assessment of the history. So physical examination is fairly important. You can't rely totally on the BP taken by the patient himself because they are available and so on and so forth. So all these things ultimately will lead to a importance of physical examination. Now, many a times, a few of the times you need to check the size, the tumor, size of the uterus and so on, so many things. The color hue may not be exactly reflecting in the teleconsultation. But with all these limitations, I would avert back to the original teaching, what we used to be taught in our medical colleges, that you come to a fair diagnosis or at least one or narrow down the differential diagnosis in at least 75% of the cases by taking a full proper clinical history. So that's the importance of history, and also that will go hand in hand with the importance of teleconsultation. So with these reservations, I think that the common diagnosis can be arrived at or judged by the teleconsultation. That process of history is the same, checking the investigations would be the same, but jumping from history directly to investigations might not be that appropriate in every case or in majority of the cases. I would beg to differ here. Now, second point is that can telemedicine be done in every case? No, it can be very well done in all follow-up cases. And as what you gave us a situation that you have, I mean, the visit has been done in the morning hours or some few hours back, and she has some certain difficulties. She's asking only explanation about certain of the lacunae or whatever she has not understood of the prescription, very well told on teleconsultation. All follow-up consultations can be done, but luckily, I would see that there is a bold step taken by Medical Council of India through Board of Governors, etc., superseding the Medical Council, that they are now allowing it even for the first consultation. So good thing, it's a change. Now, some time back, I was listening to the discussion whether it would be ethical to charge and not ethical to charge, how much to charge. It is very ethical to charge because it is the precious advice you are given, and what you are taking the amount for is for your advice and consultation, and not every time about the paper prescription. So it is very ethical, and now it is fully supported. Now, one thing I would draw the attention of all the people who are listening is law always follows science very late. So whether it is ethical, non-ethical, all these issues, I think Ashwini was telling that she was giving WhatsApp consultations right from beginning. We have all been doing this teleconsultation only on the audio platform in majority of the cases. Now, whether it was legal, ethical, till the time the medical council said it can be.
I think we've lost his audio.
Yeah.
So we are losing your audio, sir.
Am I not audible?
Now you are. Now you are.
Okay, I think most of the things you got it when I was.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So the
lagging behind the scientific advances, and one thing I think in the beginning you had a remark that we were taught like this and all that. Yes, now the things have changed in last 50 years, 40 years, 10 years, 20 years. So we'll have to catch up with all this progress, and the teleconsultation is bound to stay even after pandemic is over.
Right. So only thing is we will not get carried away as doctors with teleconsultation alone, and
Yes.
with advices like from the seniors like you, we will still continue to. I mean, the importance of in-person examination will also be realized by all of us sitting here for the webinar.
That will
Again,
depend on the branch of medicine you are practicing.
yeah. Again, I
To some
want to
extent.
ask Dr. Navrange, taking advantage of the fact that Navrange sir is a medico-legal expert, if indeed it was a standard practice, then by the Boehm's principle, it should have been accepted as a standard practice even so many years back. But
Yes.
it was not done, and there was some high court cases and some Supreme Court cases which put a lot of fear into the minds of the doctors.
Yes.
Now, this webinar, sir, is being attended by even some patients. So I would want
Yes.
you to give even, I mean, this is the first chance that we are getting to now interact with non-doctors also. So I would want you to take this opportunity and tell everybody about the Boehm's test so that they understand what is standard practice. And then maybe you will tell us about why we were afraid of doing teleconsultation
Yes.
before the 25th of
So
March
many
and what has
patients,
changed after that.
I agreed, Dilip. So many patients used to get offended when we used to say that you have to come in person. So they would think that every time the doctor wants a consultation fee, and that is why they are calling to their clinics. So the point was that this particular, I mean, there are so many judgments, but the last one, which I can remember, was Dr. Martin D'Souza versus Ishfaq Mohammed, in which the Supreme Court had cleared telephonic consultation to be avoided as much as possible. Now, they did not say it is banned, to be avoided as much as possible. So this was a thin line, always perplexing the mind of the doctors, whether they would be right or wrong while giving telephonic advice, even for casual purposes. So that is the reason the doctors were afraid, and from medical legal dais to all across the doctors, we used to say, don't give telephonic.
Again, we have lost your audio, sir. So we have lost your audio. मला वाटतं काहीतरी connection.
Yes, I think he's probably got disconnected.
Yeah, he's got disconnected. So shall we go ahead? I mean, whatever Dr. Navrange was trying to tell was on the 25th of March, the Board of Governors of the MCI came together and they came out with a guideline for the telemedicine consultation. And now it is allowed, the teleconsultation is allowed from the 25th of March 2020. However, there are some WhatsApp messages being sent across by some of the IMA branches. Like there is an IMA Delhi WhatsApp message saying that they do not endorse a teleconsultation, and this puts again the doctors in a fix. I mean, they do not understand whether it's a legal way of consulting or not. So here I wanted to impress upon the doctors who have logged in that IMA is a social organization. They are not the statutory body to take care of our practice. So somebody who can have a control over the doctor's practice is MCI. And when MCI says that it is allowed, IMA is only a social organization. So if some IMA body from Delhi says that it is not allowed, then you need not worry about it. Pune IMA, and I wanted to congratulate Dr. Navrange here on the Pune IMA that a year back, despite the fact that there were so many Supreme Court judgments and High Court judgments against teleconsultation, he was so proactive that Pune IMA endorsed our application, the DRPRAX app, for teleconsultation. So there are some social organizations of doctors who are very, very proactive. And I must thank Dr. Navrange for this proactive action that he took for us. Having said that, sir, are you there back?
Yeah. There was a connection problem. I think there is a lot of problem in my house today.
Correct.
So I'm intermittently getting disconnected.
Yeah. So I told them about the Board of Governors and what the practice guidelines that have come after 25th of March. And I told them about this fact also, that though there can be some IMA, some branch telling us that they don't endorse telemedicine consultation, you need not worry, because MCI is the one who has got a statutory power to guide our practice. And once MCI has said that it is legally allowed, then it is legally allowed. So
And
that's
Dilip,
what I would think.
I can just add one thing.
Yeah. Hello, sir, you're still again got disconnected.
I'm there.
Yeah. Now we can hear you.
Dilip, what I was saying that even now, if some branch or some association or some organization is saying that it is not allowed, I think they can produce our letter, which is there on the letterhead, and we can again vouch for it that it is very much perfectly legal.
Yeah. Right. So doctors need not worry about this fact anymore now, because now it is a known fact that the MCI has told us, the Code of Ethics have told us that it is definitely allowed. So what I'll do is I'll just rush through some of the slides here to make everybody understand that now
Yes.
the guidelines that have come from the MCI tell us that it is allowed. It is allowed not only for allopaths, but it is allowed for homeopaths now also for doing homeopathy practice on teleconsultation. It's going to stay beyond the pandemic. It is allowed for health education of things that may not be of a personal nature between the patient, but health talk. I can talk about COVID. I can talk about what medicines to be given on COVID, even for a first consultation. Then it can be for counseling for particular problem of the patient, or even for prescription writing. Now it includes audio, video, text, and data transfer also. So everything is included, and it includes the use of mobile, WhatsApp, email, Facebook, or whatever digital medium. The guidelines also say that doctors are allowed to charge fee, and the guidelines leave it to the doctor's judgment to decide whether an in-person consultation is required or if that consultation can be done online. And they expect that during emergency, the first aid advice should be given on. The doctor cannot just cut the phone and say it's an emergency and I just cannot talk with you. The doctor has to show some empathy and tell them a first aid advice if it is applicable in that case, and help them out in a proper referral. Limitation of consultation, teleconsultation. They say that limitation of teleconsultation should be considered by the judges when they are judging a standard of care when there is a case in the court of law. And they say that the consent is not required if the patient has initiated the teleconsultation. Only if the registered medical, the doctor initiates the consultation, then an explicit consent in form of a text or an audio or a video message is what is required. What is important for every doctor to know here is that there is a mandatory record that they have to maintain of the log of all teleconsultation, the patient's record, the prescription that has been given. So this is one thing that it is, the responsibility is upon us that whatever we do with the patient, a record has to be maintained. One good thing that is there in the guidelines is if there is a breach in the privacy because of some technological fault, now then the doctor is not going to be held responsible for that. So the guidelines are very good and very proactive, and it is in the benefit of the patient and the doctor. First consultation is allowed, provided video for an eye, for ear, or an skin consultation. The misconduct that is there in teleconsultation is if the doctor is forcing on a teleconsultation despite the fact that the patient is ready for an in-person consultation, or the doctor is misusing the patient record that is there on the social media, and some video the doctor is showing somebody somewhere else, and that is considered to be a misconduct. Or doctor is prescribing prohibited drugs, or doctor is trying to use platform wherein patients are being solicited, doing an advertisement about self. So all these things are considered to be misconduct. And they have divided the drugs into 4 categories. One is a list O, which is an OTC drug. So there is no harm in giving any of the OTC drug like paracetamol, cough syrups on teleconsult as a prescription, or health related drugs. Like if now the government says that you have to take HCQs for COVID, then that can be given, or chloroquine for malaria, or vaccines. These things can be definitely given, and that comes under list O. List A is the follow-up refill drugs that Ritesh was talking about, a chronic problem, and they want just a refill of the drug. These drugs can be anti-hypertensive, anti-diabetic, anti-asthmatic, and the list is not exhaustive. You can keep on adding, and even the Board of Governors is going to add the list here. And there can be, this can also include first consultation drugs like skin, eye, ear conditions, where somebody like Salim Patan can write about eye drops and things like that. List B is add-on drugs. And supposing the patient is already on some drugs and has got an extra problem, another minor problem, then you can add on the drugs depending on the report. Like you got a report of urine culture and it is positive, that it is showing infection, you can add antibiotics or you can add probiotics and things like that. Unfortunately, in the list of prohibited drugs, there are narcotics, there are psychotropic and anti-cancer drugs. I mean, this is unfair to the psychiatrists and the psychiatry patients, because there are many psychiatry patients who are chronic patients and it is not possible sometimes to take them to the clinic. And I think a lot of advocacy is going to be required on the part of this oncologist and the psychiatrist to see to it that there are certain drugs which should be allowed in some situations, so that even these psychiatry patients will benefit as much as the patients that Ritesh and Shahida told us about. So we are all convinced that telemedicine is allowed. So kal se shuru karenge. That is that may be the message for everyone, and even pandemic ke baad we will continue karenge. Lekin I want to now go to Salim, Dr. Salim Patel, and ask him. Now we are almost bombarded with all these telemedicine webinars, and the patients are the first time that they are actually attending a webinar on telemedicine. But as doctors, this must be our 10th webinar on teleconsultation. I want to ask you that we have our mobile phones, we have our WhatsApp, both mobiles and WhatsApp are free. Do you still recommend that we should go to a private platform provider for teleconsultation, and we can continue to use our platforms, our mobile or WhatsApp? So what is your opinion on that?
See, we have been doing consultation on this WhatsApp platform very easily. But the problem with this WhatsApp platform or any other social platform is that we cannot retrieve the data of the patient. And we are not able to prescribe the patient in the recommended format.
Correct.
And there are so many things, like patient cannot send us his own reports in the proper format. So having a third party application would be very much useful for our doctor point of view to get a valid information, and which can be retrieved later on. So I think using such platform will be very much useful to doctors and also to the patients.
Correct. So just to sum up, first of all, as you rightly said, we have to keep, there is a mandatory record keeping that is needed. And as an individual user, it will be very difficult to keep the record of the telephone or the WhatsApp that we have done with the patient. Prescriptions, as you said, have to be in a proper template, so that can be provided by the private platform provider. Privacy maintenance is a big issue. I mean, our WhatsApp is not leak proof. So whatever is there on the WhatsApp, it can just leak out, and the patient can sue you for privacy issues. The thing that we were discussing about getting monetized, that is going to be easy on a private platform provider. Otherwise, from WhatsApp, it is very difficult and embarrassing for us to tell कि अभी ये consultation हो गया, इतना पैसा भेज दो. So that becomes very embarrassing. The private platform provider can do this embarrassing job for us, so that even the patients will not be feeling embarrassed to ask questions or get prescription, and even the doctors will have no embarrassment in asking for the money that for the service that they have given. So it is prudent to search for a private platform provider. That is the message that we have. And I would want opinions of all the doctors sitting here. When you choose a private platform service provider, what basic features that you look for? I mean, you have taken a decision of going to the private platform provider. There are many private platform providers available. So I would want first Nachiket, then Salim, then Ashwini, and finally Dr. Navrange sir to tell us about what are they looking for when they are actually registering with a private platform provider.
So, from a teleconsultation private platform, the first thing is ease of consultations, both on the go as well as when you're in the clinic. So having a web portal as well as a mobile related app version is mandatory. Two, it should be applicable for all forms, Android, iPhone, and ease of monetary concern. The patient should have access to every possible gateway that he can, whether it be a UPI payment, whether it be a card payment, whether it be an ATM, or any forms that are generally available. These were the initial, and the ease of handling, both for the patient as well as for the doctor.
So yes, Dr. Salim, would you want to add something on that?
For teleconsultation platform, which I was looking for, And when I came across this DR Prax platform, which was exactly suiting my needs in the form, my specialty is such that where visual impression was playing a vital role in preliminary diagnosis. There are certain limitations because we cannot have physical consultation, but this platform was providing the initially diagnostic tool, right? Because the patient can share their images, patient can share respective videos with which I'm able to diagnose those conditions. And the most important thing which I notice is I can share a prescription in a valid format with my signature on it. There is no other platform which is providing such kind of a valid prescription format. And once my job of consulting with the patient after communication is over, the third party job of procuring the consultation fee is nicely done on this platform. That is what I was looking for, and I'm pretty happy with that.
Correct. Ashwini, your take on it?
I think most of the points these both doctors have told. What additionally I was looking for is something where we have to repeat the same things again and again for every patient. So making a template now for obstetric patients, I have certain diet templates. For infertility PCO patients, I have a template related to diet for PCO. In IVF, where we spend around 20-25 minutes in counseling, one part comes to the actual how it is going to happen in 6 weeks time. So all to give all this fair idea, I was looking for ready-made template which I send safely, and then I can ask them in the further follow-up to have queries on that. So this application made it very easy so that it saves my time and energy, and patient gets it in a written form, so probably they appeal it even better along with the counseling. So I think having a user friendly platform was very, very essential, and then templates have made it very easy.
Right. Navrangi sir, your take, because you will look at it from the medico legal point of view. So what is it that, and Navrangi sir has been with us on the as an advisor for the DRPRAX for a long time now. And if our platform is medico legally very compliant, it is all credit to Dr. Navrangi sir. So what was your take when you looked at us and then you gave us advice and we tried to implement all that in the platform?
Thank you, Dr. Dilip. All these points are very valid points, which previous three doctors all have given. In addition to that, I think what is two more things I would add, which is there in this particular app. One is the consent of every patient. Though Board of Governors and medical council said that it is not mandatory unless so and so things are there, I think the consent should not be just relied upon as an implied consent. Every time the patient downloads this apparatus, they have to sign a contract. So that is very important thing from my point of view. Number two, easy retrieval of data and permanent storage. Number three is the confidentiality and secrecy. And these are assured compared to any of these other social networking platforms. So I think these are very important. They have been made very compliant with the doctor's needs as well as for the patient's needs. And easy accessibility and assured payment. So all these things matter. And these would be looked up. I mean, these are being looked after by the doctors when they go for such a platform where this particular DRPRAX is scoring highest.
Yeah. So I would just, I will not even read because everything that I wanted to say has been covered by the doctors. Yeah, Salim, you want to add something? And
Yeah,
Dr. Navrangi wants to add something.
I just wanted to add one more thing, is that when you are taken on the platform, even your validity is checked through the registration number and so on and so forth. So that's an authentic doctor and not just any doctor.
Correct. Yeah, Salim, you wanted to add something?
There are 2 points I need to add. The one important point, though, that most of the doctors, they set their consultation fees once they download their app. The beauty of this platform, which I found it that suppose I have consulted with one of the patients, and looking at these complaints and considering the present scenario, if I feel that I shouldn't be charging this patient for the consultation, I have the option of minimizing or giving some concession, or even not taking any consultation from the patient. So this is an important part of it. And second thing which I notice is that what Dr. Naurangi had rightly said, that for each and every documents which are being uploaded, they are uploaded with a proper consent from the patient. So that is what we were looking for.
Yeah, yeah. Apart from this, we have been careful, all thanks to Dr. Naurange, to add value to the to our platform by now making it possible to get medico-legal advice on the click of the button. Dr. Naurange will be there. So you have any problem, myself, Dr. Gitendra Sharma, Dr. Hitesh Bhatt, Dr. Sanjay Gupte, everybody has shown interest to be on the platform as our medico-legal consultants. So on, and at a click of a button, you have any problem, you ask them a question, they will also answer the question. Maybe they might charge. So even here, you need not feel embarrassed. Doctors need not feel embarrassed to ask a question to a medico-legal concern. Otherwise, many a times you just pick up a phone and you talk to the doctor, and then there is that embarrassing thing about what charges. So that can also be taken care of during by giving medico-legal advice here. Patient information documents about different procedures can be there on default, as Ashwini told that she's got ready-made templates now about what diet advice. So you can have information booklets on different surgeries and procedures. You can take an e-consent also on the platform. You are doing the surgery, say day after tomorrow, you can take an e-consent, and then when the patient comes in the hospital, you can take a physical consent also. So you can then produce in the court of law that I had given an information booklet about this surgery to the patient, and I had taken a consent also. And easy to access guidelines of different societies. So we are going to give links to the different RCOG guidelines, FOXI guideline, ICOG guidelines, and there can be guidelines for pediatrics, guidelines for rheumatology. So those links can be given through your app. And there is, as Nachiket told us, it also has a practice management solution for managing in-person OPD. So you have to choose your private platform provider vigilantly. So now I come back to my patient. So much is being talked about the platform being ideal and suitable for doctors. So do you think that the such platform should have scope for offering something as a value addition to the patients? I mean, for doctors, we have done enough. So do you think there is something left out for the patient, so that now the DR Prax has still got something to do when it comes to their platform for the patient? So Ritesh and Shahida can chip in and answer this.
Sir, I would like to say that in my case, whatever requirement I had, Nachiket sir has done everything. So I really don't have anything to say now, furthermore requirement.
You seem to be a big fan of Dr. Nachiket.
No, no. No, not that way, sir. I was in a mess. You don't know what was my condition. I was in a very bad state. But Dr. Nachiket didn't know me also. Only once we had met. But he was very, very helpful to me. But believe me, other doctors also on WhatsApp, sometimes they are giving me the replies. So most of the doctors, they are good. Like, once they know the patient history and they know the mentality of the patient, I'm sure all the doctors would like to respond. Whatever time is available with them, they give us the answers, Right. So for me, I really don't know what other scope or what other things you would offer us,
Yeah,
I really, my requirement was fulfilled completely.
Okay.
So
Ritesh, would you want to add something?
Yeah, a couple of things, sir, from my side. One is an ability for a patient when he downloads or she downloads, to ability to search for the doctor that they're looking for is an essential one from the patient's perspective, because many times doctor will say that download this app, and you may not know how to, go around and find out the doctor that you're looking for. Some functionality to find out the exact doctor that you were looking for is very useful, and that I think would really help. The second thing is in multidisciplinary disorders. I think, as I was speaking, if there is some way that the doctors can themselves collaborate, forming some kind of a WhatsApp group amongst themselves, especially during some emergency scenario, those kind of features will also be very helpful from the patient's perspective.
Yeah. So there is a lot to be done even for us when it comes to patient's perspective, and fortunately, Vinita, we are thinking even beyond what Shahida and Ritesh has told us. So there is going to be, Shahida and Ritesh, there are going to be some value additions for both of you. There are certain things that will come as a surprise for you that we are working out for patients also. Patients communities, like somebody is suffering from chronic problem, rheumatological problem. We can create a patient community where you can have activities there also, because it is not just a doctor that helps you, but it is another patient having similar problem also helps you. you. So there are many things that can happen when it comes to more and more patients coming on the platform. See, for every 100 doctors that come on the platform, there are 1,000 patients that come, easily 1,000 patients that come on the platform. So there is a leverage there. There are so many people on the platform because one doctor is going to have some number of patients on the platform. So there is a lot that can be done by DR Prax for the patients also, because when it comes to doing for doctors, we have been doing it because there are doctors on board. But when it comes to doing something for the patients, there is a lot that can be done. So future is bright. Again, I'll come back to Nachiket to address this issue. I mean, many doctors have this problem. They say, my patients are from rural India, rural area. My patients are old and not tech savvy. They are not educated. I don't think they'll be able to use an app. Is it a reality or a myth in our country now? Do you think that most of our patients know how to use a mobile phone and an app?
There's a partial reality to that. There's always anything which comes new. A change from a routine is always going to come with a hindrance and sense of inertia. The way to handle telemedicine, though it is about not being able to be in physical touch, is to have a human touch in terms of robust support. So if you have a robust support team who is able to be in touch with anybody for any, whether it be logistics support, whether it be medical support, whether it be payment support, if those are being attended to, much of these problems are very easily tackled for. As far as tech savvy or the question put forward is tech savvy, that means that the patient does have the technology with him. It's just that he's not used to using the technology. So the reason to highlight this perspective is because smartphones are now probably most sold across the globe in India.
Yeah.
We would be really, it's not a matter of surprise to know that smartphones have reached even the smallest of human settlements or communities in India, because that becomes the only entertainment portal. When you are in cities, you have many entertainment portals to go for. In a rural background, you will find that the smartphone is the only way where they are in touch with the international forum. So they are dependent on smartphone even more than what we in a urban setup would be. So technology has already reached. That is not the question. The question is about using a different new portal where a robust support can fill up this gap, which Dr. Prax definitely has.
Correct. So if anybody can use a WhatsApp, then I think anybody can use a DR Prax app. It is not much different from using a simple WhatsApp. So I think now the doctors should not get out of this mindset that our patients are not going to be able to use. And when we are talking about somebody not being able to use a technology, and when we know that India, the technology has spread to such an extent, I would like to like Vinita or Atul to chip in to tell us about the Kenya story. I mean, we tend to have this feeling India मध्ये तर सगळे everybody uses WhatsApp, uses a smartphone. What about Kenya? Kenya rural population. Do you because we have a story to tell about Kenya, because DR Prax is now entering into Kenya also for services there. So I would like Vinita or Atul to come in and tell us about the story that they have about Kenya.
Sure. Atul, do you want to take that or do you want me to? Okay, I'll go ahead. So yes, we had a webinar with doctors in Kenya and patients, primarily to discuss Dr. Prax, and they do not have any platform or a robust teleconsultation platform available right now. And we had a discussion with them. These were policymakers, these were senior officials in the government, as well as large doctors, large medical organizations in Kenya. And unanimously, we got the same message that yes, doctors feel that they should use teleconsultation in Kenya, and they believe that the rural population is well equipped to handle the technology, as well as, since they are so proficient with WhatsApp and they're using it so extensively, using a platform like Dr. Prax or a teleconsultation platform to service their medical needs should not be a big hindrance. So even in the rural areas, in remote areas in Kenya, they are considering using Dr. Prax as a solution because they find it easy to use and easy to adopt.
Really proud to say that during that webinar where I was conducting the panel there also with all their policy makers and their doctors there, they at the end told me that India is showing us a way. So as an Indian, I felt really proud when it came to somebody from Kenya telling us that India is showing us a way ahead when it comes to teleconsultation. And they asked me to share the document of the telemedicine guidelines that MCI has prepared for us. So something to be really proud, and I hope that we
Yes.
make a dent in.
Yes, it was really a nice session.
Yeah.
And they are looking at primarily adopting some of the telemedicine practices that we have introduced in Kenya. So thank you, Dr. Naurange. Your help that you've provided is going to reach Kenya as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice to-
So at the end, I mean, all the panelists already have told all good things about DR Prac. So we've got all the bouquets already. So I don't want them to again tell about the experiences with DR Prac, but I would want to ask them about any brickbats that you have. I mean, only when we come to know about the brickbats is the way forward. Then we will try to improve upon it. So first the doctors and then the patients. The doctors, Nachiket, do you find something lacking in DR Pracs that you would want the technology people to address?
There has to be a model for patients who do not have smartphones. I know this works entirely on smartphone, but still patients who are not on smartphone are still in a virtual place. A model can exist wherein we get in touch with a general practitioner on an every district level or on a taluka level where the patients can liaise with. But that is where patients find an escape route to not engage into a telemedicine platform. If we have that way to attend to, I think then there will be no reason and no person who can be left out of telemedicine consent.
Yeah, Salim.
I think I find some of my patients are not able to download this app, which is very basic thing, and also they don't know how to upload the images. So if they could provide some link how to do it yourself, like how to upload the images, and you need to take a consent and why you are taking a consent in their legible language, but whatever language is provided is a legal language. So most of the time the patients don't understand why they are supposed to every time give a consent for uploading that images. So that is what most of the patients have, they had some hindrance for that.
Okay.
So that was point which I wanted to convey to them. Otherwise, they have really upgraded it time to time with whatever instructions we have been providing to them. And the second thing which I wanted to communicate is most of the information which is given is in the English language, and obviously a few of our patients are not well versed with that. So they should have the commonly spoken languages like Hindi and Marathi, so that it will be convenient for them.
Wonderful. See, these are wonderful suggestions that are coming, and I think I hope Atul and Vinita is jotting down all the points. Ashwini, your take on this?
Sometimes I have found difficulty with the speed of the server. I'm not sure if that is the problem with everybody. Especially when I'm looking for downloading the reports, it takes comparatively more time than any other WhatsApp or any other media. And secondly, with the notification, like if I have a messages pending to be read, if it comes on the app, then it is a kind of notice for me, okay, I need to open it and see. I have sometimes patients message me on WhatsApp saying that, doctor, we have sent you the report on Pracs, please look at it and advise further. So I don't know that notification. Yes. How if we get a message on WhatsApp, you get it on the upside that, okay, there are 4 messages pending to be read. That kind of notification, if we get for Dr. Pracs also, it will be easy. So I know that at 10:30 at night, I have to look at it. Otherwise, patients call me or message me that, okay, please have a look. So I think that's the only thing. Otherwise, I'm very comfortable with
it. I can assure you, Ashwini, Salim, and Nachiket, that this team, I know them for now more than a year, and you challenge them. And once you challenge them, they work on it. I mean, I remember the way me and Naurange sir challenged them on the privacy issues, and we were on their heads that unless you solve this privacy issue of the documents and the chat, it has to be in an encrypted form, and we have to have a non-disclosure agreement with anybody who is able to decode it. They solve that issue immediately. So I think whatever points you are saying, it will be all taken care of. Naurange sir, even you may be having certain things that
no, actually, I'm just learning how to use this app. and Vibhuti had come day before. And today morning, my receptionist sent this particular link to my patients, and they have started using it down. But so far, I am not very proficient about it. So they have communicated to me. Patients have sent me, and then telephoned me that saying that you have not seen our messages. So I'm learning this procedure.
I have learned a few things from my patients. I told them to download, and the patients came to the clinic and told me, "Sir, तुम्हाला एवढं येत नाही का? हे असं करायचं असतं."
They are technically more proficient than what we are.
Some of my IT patients, they were so thrilled that there is an app like this, and they came and they spent time with me, and then they told me, "This is how you upload, this is how you download, and this is how you manage the app."
I'm in that process right now.
Great. Again, I would want to go to the patients, Ritesh and Shaida. I mean, do you find something in the platform which is lacking, and you would want to tell us?
Well, more than lacking, sir, I think the idea that you suggested of communities, that really excites me. For some of the diseases, there is not enough information. These are all evolving. Like in some diseases, diet plays very important role, and people keep trying various different things in their own life. And if some of those things can be shared as part of the community group, I think that will become a very, very powerful tool for us to engage with large number of patients and helping each other. In America, that's a very, very common practice. In India, we don't see too many community groups, and I think this platform could just take us forward on that particular part.
Shaida?
I have nothing to say, sir.
Okay.
I'm happy with whatever services I have taken,
So nice to have people like Shaida who's happy. Great.
Yeah,
So,
it does.
yeah. So the next part of the webinar definitely is going to be Vinita will take over, and she will tell us about how DR Prax is doing what the doctors asked and what the patients asked, and what is it that they are going to do in the future. At the end, I just would want to say that DR Prax is committed to bring the doctors and the patient close to each other, because at DR Prax we feel that the patients need not commute to get communicated with the doctor. So this is our motto: don't commute to get communicated. Thank you very much for
Thank you so much.
my panelists. They have been a wonderful panel, and their inputs are all welcome, and everybody was very happy to have your inputs, and from Shaida and Ritesh also. So thanks to my doctor panelists, thanks to my patient panelists. I will now hand it over to Vinita and Atul to do the needful later on.
Thank you so much.
I'll stop sharing.
Thank you all. Wonderful.
Thank you.
And thank you, doctors, for all your feedback. All the points have been noted. I've actually taken notes, and we definitely hope to kind of address each one of them. Only thing that I want to kind of get back to Dr. Margare, and I think Dr. Navrangi also, was about the notifications. We'll help you set that up. I think there is a small setting on the mobile phone which prevents notifications once we get that started. But everything else, they're very good inputs, and we need to get those going. We'll definitely work on those. What I want to do right now is go through a demo of the application, so that new doctors and even Dr. Navrangi, who's starting to use it, will find it easy to onboard. So we have a demo for doctors and for patients. I'll cover the doctor demo, and Vibhuti will cover the patient demo. So I'll just start sharing content. Let me know when you can see my screen. So Dr. Prax, as we've seen, is an application for doctors made by doctors, and our focus has been on medico-legal safety and ease of use. So I think there's a lag in the sharing. Okay. So as a doctor, when you register to the app, you first take it to the Explore page, where you get information about the application and all its various features. If you need additional help, you can check out our YouTube videos. There is, a tab on the top, as well as any additional news information about Dr. Prax. You can get it through our Facebook page. Moving on, at the bottom of the page, we have My Chats. Once you know more about the app, you can move on to My Chats. And in the MyChat screen, you can basically chat, you get chat messages from your patients. We have other features such as audio and video consultations. I'll cover that as well. So on the top right hand corner, you can see your profile, and you would have entered some preliminary details when you registered the app. But once you click on profile, you can add your details, personal, professional, and clinic related details, and payment related details. Now, do fill these up if you haven't done so already, because these details are inputs for your patients, and they know more about you through this. The payment details are important. We need your bank account details and consultation charges, because these charges are what would be charged to your patients. And once the patient pays, it is directly connected to the bank account provided here. Moving back. I'm sorry, I don't know why the sharing stopped. I'll quickly start sharing again. Vibhuti, can you start?
Yeah, I'm just checking. Yeah, I was just to say that can I start with the patient thing? I'll just try to share.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello everyone, and good evening to all of the respected doctors, and thank you for taking out your time and giving your valuable inputs. We will make sure that we will be helping you more better with our more better platform in the coming days. I'll just quickly walk through all of you through the patient demo. Let me just know if you all are able to see my screen. Is it visible to all?
Yeah. It is visible.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So, so basically, when patient downloads the app as the login process, they are able to see two options as a doctor or as a patient. So they select as I am a patient, and then we verify their mobile number with the one-time password for the security purpose. And then they will be landing on the home page, and they can just go to this invite button. Then they should go to the search doctor, the doctor whom they are consulting with, and they should find their name here. So this is the first step that they should do when they want to consult with the doctor. And the below they will be able to see the list of the doctors as per the search. Yeah, so yeah, I'm just the patient needs to click on this chat thing so that doctor gets added to the my chat list. And after the patient has logged in, just a second, I'm just clicking on the arrow. Yeah, when the patient logs in and verifies the number, they also need to complete their profile, as you all doctors also need to do. So this is like personal details and payment details and everything. They are able to see all the payment details they have made with the various doctors for the consultation, for the chat, and for the online appointments. So they will be able to see that payment detail view here, as you also get to see it on profile details. They can contact us through if there is any issue or something, they can just mail us, and they can call us from here directly. So this is a profile thing when they complete it first after login, and then they can invite to the doctor whom they are consulting with. Now there are this on this home screen, you must be able to see this my chat, call log, explore, my health, and appointment. So as a patient, if I am logged in,
Vibhuti, we can't hear you.
Vibhuti, screen jam झाला था. It's just not moving forward.
There's some problem with the phone version, because the same thing happened with me.
Okay.
I was just not able to project it on Zoom after some time. So it's the same thing.
Vinita, can we share the videos later to all the recipients?
I think
we've got the maybe the mobile numbers of all those who have logged in.
Yes.
So we can share them the video later. I mean, you
can do that. If you can just share your phone numbers on the chat window on the YouTube live page, we can go ahead and send you the videos on how to use the app. I apologize for this glitch, but we need to log in through our phones to kind of give the demo. And for some reason, Zoom is giving some problems while broadcasting from the phone.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just got interrupted. Should I continue, ma'am, or like we'll be sharing the link? I lost for like last two sentences. Sorry.
Yeah, are you able to broadcast or?
Yeah, I am able to. It's just that like light has gone and it took 1 second to just switch off to over the Wi-Fi.
Okay, so I think what we will do, Vibhuti, is we'll go ahead and share the videos in the time. We are already 25 minutes over.
Okay, sure.
Without further ado, I would like to quickly move to the questions. There are quite a few doctors who have a lot of questions. Let's get their questions responded to, and we can have a demo for the doctor and patients after the questions are done. And if there are some doctors who want to stay back, they can get the, look for the demo.
Yeah.
So we have quite a few questions to the panel of doctors here, and I'll post those, and I would request Dr. Walke to kind of target those questions depending on which practitioner can answer them properly. Okay. So the first question is from Dr. Sharad Iyengar. He wants to ask, what is the view on early medical abortion for MTP through telemedicine? The lockdown has made it difficult to access abortion services. Does telemedicine offer a solution?
Yeah. So actually, hi Sharad. I mean, Sharad Iyengar is a good friend of mine. It's nice to, I mean, see, these telemedicine platforms are such a wonderful thing. I mean, through that you can get connected to your old friends. There are many years that I have not met you, Sharad. So nice to see, to know that we are getting connected through this webinar platform. So Sharad has got a question, Ashwini, about whether you can use this for medical termination of pregnancy with the help of medicines. Can you go do away with the in-person consultation, take the the signature on a C form, and do MTP with medicines? Ashwini, your take, and then Dr. Naurangi, I would want you also to chip in, because this appears to be more like a medico-legal question. So Ashwini, can you take it from here?
I think if it isn't going to be a medical abortion with the pills, the primary part of counseling and explaining the process will be done on a telemedicine. But actually, when we are handing over the medicines to the patient, I think it is prudent that the person should be in person. Should be calling them and giving the tablet. But then there are always lot of queries related to the medical termination, related to the side effects, related to the future effects, whether it is going to affect the chances of the patient's future pregnancy. All that, when the patient calls you, doctor, my UPT is positive and I don't want this pregnancy, probably one consultation of explaining everything can be done on telemedicine, but offering the medicines should be in person. I don't think that would be possible.
Why Sharad is asking this question. Sharad does a lot of work, lot of social work in the rural areas of the country. I mean, this Sharad Iyengar is a matter of pride for all our batchmates. I mean, he is the one who chose to do a lot of social work, and that's the reason for his concern about those women in the rural India, wherein they would want to get this service of termination of pregnancy with the help of medicines without having to visit the doctor. So maybe a lot of advocacy is going to be required on the part of people, organizations like Foxy, to do a lot of advocacy with the government of India, so that the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act is amended in such a way that this part of it, that giving medicines on for medical termination of pregnancy, wherein the pregnancy is so early, that should be allowed on teleconsultation. This is my personal view also, but at the moment, as you said, Ashwini, we eminently cautious from medical legal point of view. We will not be doing it, but yes, a good amount of advocacy will be required here. Dr. Naurangi sir, would you want to comment something on this? I mean, Naurange sir is muted here. So I think if that answers Sharad, maybe in person we'll also talk about this and see what advocacy can be done. Can we go to the next question, Vinita?
Sure. The next question is on rural patients.
Yeah.
So I think Dr. Satyavrata Panigar, he is asking, how can a telemedicine consultation platform help rural patients? So
I think Nachiket already answered this, but then Nachiket, would you want to elaborate a little bit on your consultation for rural patients?
I think it's more of a preconceived notion rather than on ground reality that this question exists on. As far as the on ground reality is, as I have already explained, that the technology has reached the periphery. The question is not about whether the technology is penetrated. The question is about whether, as a patient group, whether as a community group, we are ready to embrace this new change in medical treatment. Yes, it will be met with resistance, but if adequately counseled and explained, and with that being the only form of communication that you can express to the patients would go ultimately onto the telemedicine platform. पाण्यात पडले की पोहायला शिकतच तसंच आहे ते. So it's not difficult once you have decided that you have to use it. And my experience with connecting with patients from a rural background has been very comfortable. In fact, the question comes more from the urban background where nitty-gritties are more to be explained. In rural phenomenon, it's more trying to get in touch with the doctor and getting the opinion, which matters the most rather than the technical requirements.
Right. So Vinita, next question that is coming.
Thank you, Dr. Nachiket. So the next question is from Dr. Beena Tandon. Rather, I think she has a statement that she would like to make. She says that charging fee for the services provided is not ethical. This is our way of earning. It's like business. Does any shopkeeper give you a discount second time? On the other hand, patient asks so many times non-essential questions too at odd hours. If we start charging, at least they will understand our value. If there are ethics for a doctor, there are some ethics for patients too. So thank you, Dr. Beena Tandon. Your point is well taken. The next, we have again a question. We have a question from Dr. Sujit Pise. He would like to understand, please give your words for homeopath when we get pre-diagnosed cases. So, Dr. Walke?
Yeah. I mean, I would take this question because just as this telemedicine practice guidelines have come for registered medical practitioners who are allopaths, I mean, registered under the IMC Act of 1956. Similar way, the guidelines have come for Ayush doctors also. And at this moment of time, they have allowed all the homeopaths to come on the telemedicine platform for giving homeopathy drugs only. So it will be a medico-legal issue if on the telemedicine platform, a person who is a homeopathic doctor gives an allopathic medicine. I mean, there is a difference between a homeopathic medicine and a modern medicine. So they will have to restrict their practice to taking all their history on the telemedicine platform and prescribing a homeopathic medicine. So here definitely a homeopathic doctors can practice telemedicine, but they have to restrict it only for homeopathic medicines. So that if that answers the question, I think we move to the next question. But then if it doesn't answer the question, I think I will connect with this doctor on the email or the telephone number that he's shared with us.
Okay. Dr. Bise, please share your number. We will be more than happy to elaborate on this. Next, we have a question from Dr. Nutan Shah. Her question is for ophthalmic practice. Follow-ups are fine on teleconsultation. Fresh case is difficult to get all needed findings.
Yeah.
So I think Dr. Pathan would be the
would want to.
Dr. Pathan. Hello.
Hello, Dr. Pathan, are you there?
I think he's not there on the call right now.
Yeah,
Maybe
Nutan is a good friend. I mean, Nutan again is my batchmate, so I will connect to Nutan personally on this. But Nutan, point well taken. That's the reason why I always say that your first consultation, though the practice management, I mean the telemedicine practice guidelines have allowed first consultation for ophthalmologist in form of video consultation or in form of some photographs that the patient sends you about the eye. I think you can restrict it to only conjunctivitis and simple things like that when it comes to first consultation. But I think otherwise, unless you have examined the patient a reasonable time prior to your teleconsultation, you should avoid doing that. When Salim gets connected, and I'll connect you to Salim also, because Salim is extensively using our platform for ophthalmic teleconsultation. So maybe I'll connect you to Salim and I'll share your number to Dr. Salim, and Nachiket wants to also chip in here. So Nachiket, would you want to add something? Yeah.
As per the law, it is allowed for the doctor that once he starts engaging into a teleconsultation, and at any point he feels that this consultation might not be able to subserve the medical benefit that for which the consultation was asked for, we can leave the consultation any moment of time and insist on in-person consultation.
Correct.
So that's a prerogative that has been enshrined on the doctors, and we can use that prerogative.
Yeah. Anytime you feel that you want to stop the consultation and do an call the patient for an in-person consultation, you can do that. Thanks, Nachiket, for that point. Vinita?
Yes. So the next question is from Dr. I think he's provided his ID, which is VCJ1991. And his question is, yet few patients prefer online consultation for follow-ups, especially during pandemic. Staff is giving choice. There seems to be need for different time slot. Does Dr. Prax manage appointments too? So
you will take that question. You only answer.
I can take that question. Yes, Doctor. Dr. Prax does offer appointments for OPD, that is in-person consultations, for audio and video consultations. And the doctor needs to create a schedule for each of these types of consultations. That is, they need to enter the time from which they provide an in-person OPD consultation from maybe 8 in the morning to 12 at noon. And they have to provide the time slots that they would choose. And it's very easy to configure. Once you do that, it's very easy to provide appointments to your patients. I'll move on to the next question. It's from Dr. Asha Rathi. Make it means telemedicine patient friendly. So I think what she means to say is, can telemedicine also be made patient friendly? I think that's again, I'm assuming it's directed at Dr. Prax. Yes, ma'am. We have tried the app as simple as possible so that none of our users, whether it's doctors or patients, they should not have to learn technology or feel that they're using a complex product. We've worked extensively on making the flows and the information simple. I'm sure there's a lot of work for us to do moving forward too. And your point is taken. We will make it patient as well as doctor friendly. The next question is from Dr. Suraj Jagwani. And his question is, how many percentage of patients are approximately taking online telemedicine consultations on Dr. Prax? Ask the above question. So, yes, we have close to 6,000 patients on the platform, and in terms of prescriptions, there have been close to 2,500 prescriptions that have been given. Some of the patients are just consulting online and there's no prescription generated. So they are still receiving help from their doctors. And in some cases, doctors especially write out a prescription for the patient. So if you ask me to take a rough guess, I'm assuming somewhere between 70 to 80% of the patients have taken online telemedicine consultations on Dr. Prax, either through chat consultations where they have received only advice, or they have received prescriptions. And now we also have audio and video consultations which are prepaid, where the patient needs to pay for the consultation in advance and book a time slot with the doctor. So we have phone consultations and video consultations also that are available. So to answer your question, it's close to 70 to 80% is what I would go with. The next question again is from Dr. VCJ.
Dr. Nachiket wants to answer, Vinita.
Oh, I'm
He has a
sorry.
point to make.
Yeah. Let me rephrase the question and then answer in a doctor's perspective, that as a doctor, if I get on to a telemedicine consultation, how much of my practice have been able to convert to telemedicine? So during this COVID era, if about 100 patients have been able to contact me, as certainly because of the ease of using the app, at least 80 to 85% have been very comfortably being shifted on to using telemedicine as far as the COVID era is concerned. Subsequently, we would require a portal for patient to be able to directly connect with us, not disturbing our privacy, and being able to handle whatever the patient queries are at the go and at our convenience. So ultimately, I am sure that all of our patients who walk into our OPD can be convinced to go on to a telemedicine for further communication post this COVID-19 era.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I think you covered it very well, and thanks for giving the doctor's view. That has been very informative. I'll move on to the next question. It is from Dr. VCJ1991, and there's another point that I wanted to notify. Doctor can be a patient, and as both doctor and patient, one cannot log in to the same app. Yes, doctor, we understand that. We have created unique logins for doctors and patient. So as a doctor, we can, but we are trying to see how we can come up with a workaround for this. So do stay tuned. We will try to see how we can fix this problem. Does anybody else?
Again, answering this question, the size of the app is very minimal. So having two apps, one to be logged in as a patient and one to be logged in as a doctor. You can log in with the same number though, because it's at the initial, you are going to log either yourself as a doctor or as a patient. It does not obstruct your use of the app. And the size of the app being very minimal, it does not eat up a lot of memory. You can probably have two apps, one as a patient and one as a doctor, together on the same mobile.
Yes, Dr. Nachiket. Yes, you can, definitely. It's a small app and you can log in, but you will need to log in with two separate numbers.
Yeah.
Login number and OTP is associated with a profile. So yes, definitely it's possible as a patient, as long as you have a different number you use. So I think with that we've answered.
Vinita, yeah.
Yes, Atul.
We also have Dr. Pathan now. I think there was a question again for Dr. Pathan. He joins. If you want to have him.
Thanks, Dr. Pathan. Actually, this is a question.
Actually, I got disconnected because of some network issue in between.
Sure, sir. No issues. So
Yeah.
this.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir, you are.
Yeah.
This particular question is from Dr. Nutan Shah, and her
Yeah.
question: for ophthalmic practice, follow-ups are fine on teleconsultation. Fresh case is difficult to get all needed findings. So
Yeah. Whatever the question is asked is pretty valid question, because in ophthalmology, what we need is actually physical examination. Some part of the ophthalmology can be done with image consultation. Suppose a patient has some lid infection or patient has some conjunctivitis issue, which should be at the discretion of the treating ophthalmologist. So that is why it is rightly been said that if a treating ophthalmologist feels that he can very well do the consultation, then and then he should proceed. And especially in my app, whenever patient sends me a request for teleconsultation, I have created ready-made templates conveying the limitation of teleophthalmology. That means like vision assessment or any other diagnostic modalities which cannot be done through this app. So once we have convinced that I'm able to do a judgmental consultation, then and then I should proceed.
thank you, sir. Thank you. So I think with that, we can close with the Q&A session. We have answered most of the questions on the platform, as well as specific questions related to medical, legal, and aspects related to medicine practice. With this, I would like to close our session. We can try one more but I know all of you, we have already gone over by 45 minutes. So thank you all for your time and your patience. I really appreciate you taking the time to come, especially the panelists. And I wish you a very good evening. And thank you once again. Atul, is there anything?
Thank you very much.